The Astrodome in Houston. In 1983, the home of the worst team in the NFL. In the final weeks of the season, contending teams don't like to play teams with nothing to lose, and Cleveland Browns owner Art Modell knows all too well that upsets often happen in these situations. Modell's head coach is Sam Rutigliano, a man whose easy approach to the business of pro football has set him apart from many of his peers. Rutigliano's quarterback is Brian Sipe, a mellow Californian who just a few short years ago was hailed as the finest quarterback in the league. But this is 1983, and the Browns are fighting for a playoff spot in the AFC Central. Good things seem to come when Sipe hooks up with Ozzie Newsome, one of the best tight ends in all of football. Newsome became the Browns' all-time leading receiver earlier this season, but today he will try to keep the 8-6 Browns a game behind the division-leading Steelers. The Oilers are still Earl Campbell's team. He might not seem as effective as he was a few years ago, but it's tough to stay on top when your team has hit the bottom. To help remedy the situation, Houston has turned the offense over to second-year quarterback Oliver Luck. And things do seem to be getting better. Luck has at least made the Oilers competitive, and who knows what the future will bring. With one win and 14 games, the Oilers can only be spoilers. It's a role no team likes to be in late in the season. There's something about it that seems to bring out the best in a team. Houston is particularly down since its loss to Tampa Bay a few weeks ago. No one wants to be called the worst at his profession, and that's the label the Oilers players live with. Beating a playoff contender can do a lot to ease the heartache of a terrible season. From the Astrodome, it's the Houston Oilers and the Cleveland Browns in the NFL Game of the Week. The game began with a strong display of defense by the Browns as Cleveland shut down 1,000-yard rusher Earl Campbell in the contest's opening minutes. The Oilers decided to gamble on their first offensive possession, and on 4th and 1 from their own 35-yard line, they gave the ball to number 34. But the Browns gang tackled Campbell, and Houston was stopped in its own territory. But 3 running plays produced only 8 yards, so Cleveland had to settle for a Matt Barr field goal of 44 yards and a 3-0 lead. Oliver Luck began the season as the Oilers' third-string quarterback. But the second-year player from West Virginia was given an opportunity to start his first NFL game against Detroit the 11th week of the season. All Luck did was guide the Oilers to their only victory of the season, and he's remained in charge ever since. Against Cleveland, Luck began mixing his plays masterfully as the Oilers put together a 13-play drive on their second series. But when Houston penetrated inside the Browns' 20-yard line, Cleveland's defense asserted itself. First, outside linebacker Clay Matthews, number 57, sacked Luck for a 12-yard loss. Then Campbell found little room to roam as he was also nabbed behind the line of scrimmage. Like Cleveland a few minutes earlier, the Oilers had to take the field goal, and when Florian Kemp booted the ball through the uprights from 41 yards away, the game was tied at 3. Oilers faithful cheered the present, unaware that the future was about to bring more joy. The Browns fumbled on their first play following Houston's kickoff, and the Oilers recovered deep in Cleveland territory. One play later, a little razzle-dazzle put 6 on the board. Number 83, Tim Smith, caught the pass thrown by fellow wide receiver Steve Bryant as the Oilers moved out in front 10-3 with a minute remaining in the first quarter. For Smith, perhaps the least known of the league's top receivers, it was his 71st catch of the season, and it pushed him over the magical 1,000-yard mark. The play also produced a milestone in Oilers history. With Smith's 1,000 yards receiving and Campbell's 1,000 yards rushing, it's the first time the Oilers have had players gain over 1,000 yards rushing and receiving in the same season. With that bit of history recorded, back to the game at hand. The Browns' offense ranks near the top of the AFC, and it needed to come up with some big plays in a hurry, where not only did Cleveland need to beat Houston, they needed to beat Houston big if they were to have any chance of beating out Pittsburgh for the AFC Central title. It appeared Brian Sipe was ready for the challenge. A 28-yard pass to Dave Logan was followed by a short toss to number 82, Ozzie Newsome, the NFL's leading receiver with 78 receptions coming into the game. But the Browns were having turnover problems, and as the second period got underway, Mike Pruitt, number 43, fumbled for the second time in the half. And for the second time in the half, the Oilers pounced on it. Carter Hartwig's recovery gave Houston an excellent chance to increase its 10-3 lead. And to do that, the Oilers turned to Earl Campbell. Earlier in the game, the Oiler cannonball moved past Larry Zonka into the 9th spot among the all-time rushers in the history of the NFL. Now Campbell was simply providing the thrust as Houston jumped to a 17-3 advantage. Campbell's touchdown gave Houston a 14-point lead early in the second period. For the second week in a row, the Oilers were ahead by 2 touchdowns in the first half. The week before, they had lost the lead and the game. Today, they would only lose the lead. The Oilers' defense had not performed well much of the season, and previous games had shown that no lead was safe. Brian Sipe was well aware of that, and he continued to throw, and successfully. 18 yards to Ozzie Newsome, and the Browns were in Houston territory. But the Oilers held, and the result was merely a second Matt Barr field goal, this one from 45 yards. Surprisingly, the Browns were having trouble solving Houston's defense. They trailed 17-6 midway through period 2. And when they kicked off following the field goal, matters went from bad to worse. Number 24, Steve Brown, a rookie defensive back from Oregon, raced 93 yards for the touchdown. And the Oilers suddenly and dramatically had a 24-6 lead. Was this the same Oilers team that had won but one game all season? Against Cleveland, they were forcing turnovers, producing big plays, and generally playing strong football. And what made it even better was that the scoreboard reflected Houston's control of the game. But there was still a long way to go, and Houston had found many ways to lose in 1983. It looked as if that trend might continue when Cleveland marched right down the field following Brown's lightning return. The brunt of the drive was Sipe's passing to tight end Harry Holt, number 81, as the Browns took the ball to the Houston 2-yard line with 54 seconds remaining in the half. From there, Mike Pruitt powered into the end zone for the score that cut Houston's advantage to 24-13. Despite rushing for 74 yards in the half and breaking the 1,000-yard barrier for the fourth time in his career, it was a tough half for the Cleveland fullback. Pruitt fumbled twice, and the two miscues led directly to Houston touchdowns. The difference in the game as the first 30 minutes expired. But Pruitt's touchdown ending the half marked a turning point in the game. Not only would Pruitt bounce back in the second half, but the entire Browns team would rebound, and that would spell trouble for the Oilers. The first half had been dominated by Houston, and that didn't sit well with Brian Sipe. But Sipe's history of cardiac comebacks preceded him, and he knew darn well that he would have a chance to pull it out. But for now, intermission awaited with Houston leading 24-13. The Browns had finally shown signs of life late in the first half. But if they were to get back into the game, their defense would have to keep the Oilers at bay. And that meant changing the luck of Houston quarterback Oliver Luck as quickly as possible. Clay Matthews and company were much tougher on Luck in the third period than in previous moments, now treating the former West Virginia quarterback more like a rag doll than a crate of Lennox china. So while Luck's fortunes turned worse, the moments in Brian Sipe's life began to improve dramatically. Sipe, as he is known to do, started to get a hot hand, and that was good news for the Browns. Ozzie Newsome hauled in a Sipe toss near the corner of the end zone, setting up Mike Pruitt's second touchdown burst of the day. Cleveland was now out of its rut and ready to make even more progress. Houston's offense stalled again, so Mike Pruitt was only too glad to continue his forceful strides into and beyond the Oilers' secondary. Sipe himself got into the act on a bootleg, only to find his efforts go for naught when a penalty called the play back. So Sipe returned to the air, and ex-Canadian League tight end Harry Holt. The gain on this completion was substantial, but a holding call nullified this play as well. But neither yellow flags or Oiler cornerbacks were going to stop red-hot Cleveland at this point. Sipe sent his whole team one way and Harry Holt in the opposite direction. Quickly, Holt found himself alone and able to pick up yardage that finally passed the referee's scrutiny. From the 6, Mike Pruitt blasted off tackle for the touchdown, and the Browns had their first lead since the game's early moments. It was Pruitt's third touchdown of the game and 10th of the year, and it helped to take the sting out of two earlier Pruitt fumbles. On the day, Mike would gain 153 yards on the ground, easily attaining the 4,000-yard season of his career. Pruitt had returned to the good graces of Browns fans with a strong third quarter. But now it was time for Cleveland native Oliver Luck to show the folks back in Buckeye Land a few things. Luck had attended St. Ignatius High in Cleveland, where more than a few Browns fans had seen him in action before. This time, though, they weren't enjoying Luck's efforts. Luck called a nice variety of plays to get the Oilers moving, but finally Cleveland tightened up and the drive stalled short of the goal line. Still, Houston was close enough for a Florian Kemp field goal, and as the third quarter wrapped up, the issue was still unsettled. The Oilers were giving the Browns more than they had expected, and the two tied-up teams now prepare for an eventful and decisive final 15 minutes of football. Cleveland running back Mike Pruitt had made the third quarter his own personal showcase, but in the fourth period he found Houston's defense selfish, surly, and stifling. Houston checked Pruitt the rest of the game and halted another Cleveland drive on a diving interception by linebacker Avon Riley, number 53. The Browns disputed the call, claiming Riley had trapped the ball after it subtly touched the turf. The officials, however, disagreed and ruled the interception good. Another look at Riley's play does show that there just might have been something to Cleveland's argument. The call did not play an important part in the game's outcome, so the Browns weren't critically hurt by the turnover. What did hurt Cleveland, though, was the return of first-half nemesis Tim Smith. Smith hauled in this grab, then really dealt Cleveland a knockout blow when he made the key play of the game. The 43-yard scoring strike was Smith's second of the day. All told, Smith had 7 catches for 150 yards against the Browns. There were other Oilers who made major contributions in this game, but few loomed larger than the multitude of key plays turned in by Smith. In the end, it would earn Houston a victory. The Oilers had the lead once again, but 6 minutes still remained. Plenty of time for Brian Sipe and his cardiac cohorts to come back. Some help would be needed from Mike Pruitt, but the Cleveland running back was going through one of those checkered performances that bordered on the schizophrenic. After a difficult first half, Pruitt had then run well, but now Mike's fortunes were again taking a turn for the worse. A costly fumble, Pruitt's third of the game, gave the ball to Houston, and the Oilers had no intention of giving it back. 9-year veteran linebacker Robert Brazile, number 52, came up with a big play as he had done so many times before. Now Cleveland native Oliver Luck had a chance to beat his hometown team in one of the year's biggest upsets, if he could keep possession. Luck would have been a straight-A student in college if he hadn't gotten a B in freshman calculus. But it wasn't going to take a Rhodes Scholar to figure out what Houston was going to do. To ensure possession, the Texans entrusted the pigskin to Earl Campbell, and the Lone Star legend began to chew up yardage and the clock. Former Heisman Trophy winner out of the University of Texas was at his punishing best, carrying on nearly every play. The final totals would read 32 attempts for 130 bruising but critical yards. When Cleveland finally did get the ball back, only 6 seconds remained. The Browns tried a miracle play to tie, but there were no miracles left for the team from Ohio. When the gun finally sounded, the Houston Oilers had earned only their second victory of the year against 13 defeats. How that will affect the future of interim coach Chuck Studley is hard to tell at this time, but one matter is quite easy to understand. The Cleveland Browns had come to the Astrodome challenging for the AFC Central title. Now they would need a Texas-sized heap of good fortune just to make the playoffs. The men responsible included Oliver Luck and Tim Smith. But in crunch time, the money man had been Earl Campbell, a proud athlete who has been able to maintain a standard of excellence while others around him have struggled. In the end, Earl Campbell, the Tyler Texas Rose, made the difference.